Hey friends! Oh my goodness, I'm so excited you're here. I'm sending you lots of hugs and loves. This last month has been super hard. I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to change my MS medication because I always feel like I have the flu. And one side effect of the current medication that I'm on is flu-like symptoms. And so I don't know if I told you guys, but my brother was diagnosed about a year and a half after I was diagnosed with MS. So he also has MS. And he was taking the same medication that I was. And he's like, yeah, I actually got a lot sicker on that medication. And so I've been off the medication for like 9 months trying to get pre-approval for this next medication. Insurance companies don't tend to like to pay for MS medications because they're so expensive. Like we're talking $10,000 a month type of situations. They don't like that. But that's another topic. So I was thinking, and I've had all these like feelings about an intuition and prayer thinking, if I try and to get off the medication, maybe my symptoms would get better. Maybe I won't be so dizzy all the time. Maybe I won't feel like I have the flu all the time. Maybe I'll have a little bit more energy. Maybe I'll have the energy of a 60-year-old instead of a 90-year-old. I just was like, that would be really cool. So I went off the medication and my neurologist is like, we can, let's go off. Let's just see how you feel off of it. Day 3, was a Friday and I was doing some work, some catch up for the week. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling, it's taking me like double the amount of time to do this certain task than I normally do. But I'm like, whatever. It's Friday, end of the week, I was like, just go take your lunch, go get in bed, which is what I kind of typically do around 1 or 1:30 each day. And I have to stay there for a few hours too, which is kind of crazy. So, but I could not get out of bed. Could not get out of bed. And so, but of course it's Friday and it's a weekend. And so I could not get out of bed all weekend long. And I called the neurologist on Monday and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Also, did not plan this very well, but my daughter is graduating on Saturday and I need to go. I cannot be dysfunctional. So she told me, she said, get on your old medication. We'll start working on the pre-approval for the new medication because there's lots of MS medications. And so, why not? Well, let's try something else, and which I'm totally for doing. So we're going to try this injectable self-injected medicine. We'll see how that goes. I really don't like needles. I did not get into the medical field for a reason, but So anyway, I did end up going to Ashlyn's graduation, her college graduation. She graduated in philosophy with like a 3.95. She's going to go on to law school. She's so smart. But I cried because I was so overwhelmed and I was so tired. It was really, really hard because even though I'd gotten back on my medication, it still hadn't taken an effect. And then I just felt so bad for so much of the month. I was getting so in my head about being able to have fun during Christmas, being able to have fun for the New Year's. All my kids were in town, all with us. And I was like, I love these moments. And I was just so getting in my head that my new identity was a sick person again, like so sick that I can't do things. And I know that with everybody, we have those identities of I'm so this, fill in the blank. I can't do this, fill in the blank. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about on the podcast today. I can't wait for you to meet Stephanie Thoma. She is a speaker, coach, and author of The Confident Introvert, helping introverts find their voice, speak confidence through networking, leadership, and being on stage. She's a Forbes feature speaker and she works with leaders, speakers, and authors. And you guys, she's also a projector. So she's doing business as a projector. Her chart is so amazing. And I can't wait for you to become friends with her, dive into her world, and can't wait for you to check out this episode and see how you can shift the thoughts that are keeping you stuck. All right, see you inside the episode. Take a breath. You've got this. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Courtney, I'm so excited for us to dive in human design and all the things, labels, identity.
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. And all our friends listening, I can't wait for you guys to be with us on this episode. You all know that we like to start out by doing a game. And we're going to do a pick your piece game from my app. So here's the app. And this is a page where we're looking at the interferes. Now, everyone interferes, and we have 12 patterns of how we interfere with our success, our peace, our happiness, all the things, right? And these patterns sabotage, keep us stuck. And so, what we're going to do to start off our episode today is you're going to pick a number between 1 and 12. And then I have that assigned to a visualization, and we're going to do the visualization. So, all right, Stephanie, go ahead, pick a number 1 to 12.
8.
8. 8. Okay, we have over busy. Yes. So the over busy is all about staying busy, filling your time, feeling like you can't rest because you haven't earned it, If I'm resting, I have guilt, or, I should be doing something, or I should be further along. If I just do things enough, I'll get there. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this visualization. So everybody, Stephanie included, friends, if you're in a seated position, you can close down your eyes. If you're not, you can keep your eyes open and just let these words come over you. In these few minutes, you're investing in peace, and that investment starts working right now. The overbusy fills every moment, equating motion with success and purpose. But that's a lie. Stillness isn't wasted time. It's where clarity and creativity begin. Let's let the visualization story begin. There once was a forest tucked away from roads and rush. It wasn't loud. It didn't try to prove anything. It never once made a to-do list. Still it grew. Tall trees, soft moss, sunlight that danced on every leaf. One tree stood in the center. Not the biggest, not the oldest, but it had a glow all of its own. This tree didn't chase the sun. It simply turned toward it. It didn't beg for rain. It opened to receive it. It didn't rush to bloom. It bloomed when it was ready. Stillness was its strength, and trust was its rhythm. But nearby there was a woman who didn't know how to be still. She kept coming to the forest, arms full of planners, worries. What if it's not enough, she whispered. What if I fall behind? So she kept moving, kept proving, kept pushing. The tree watched, and one day the woman came with tears instead of plans. I am tired, she said. I don't know how to stop. I don't know who I am without the doing. The tree said nothing, but it offered its shade, its breath, and its presence. And in the hush of that moment, the woman placed her hand on the bark. She felt its pulse, not a hustle, but a hum, not a grind, but a glow. And she remembered, the forest wasn't busy, it was breathing. She sat with it. She exhaled. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't make a list. She just listened and let herself be like the forest, still, rooted. What are you afraid of will happen if you slow down? Whose approval are you chasing through constant doing? It may be others, and it may be your own. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Well done. That's another investment in your peace.
Yes, nice guided visualization. I love to meditate, so that felt very similar.
Yeah, and it feels like, so I guess I would ask you, do you have guilt when you're in stillness? Or has it taken some work to feel like you can not be running and going all the time?
So I like to be all in. I like extremes. So when I'm plugged in, I am plugged in. And then when it's time to rest, that's when I like to be, okay, technology free and ideally in nature somewhere.
Yes.
I will say though, right now, I just moved into a new apartment, and my meditation practice sometimes, and I'm sure this happens for some of your listeners too,
Yes.
you're meditating and then you think of another to-do item because there's a lot of them. And you're like,
Yes.
if I could just write this down. And when I did a Vipassana retreat, gosh, I did it in 2019 going into 2020.
Okay.
And one of the things that I had to learn during that 10-day 100-hour experience was not, you can't do anything but meditate. You can't write things down even
Mm.
if you wanted to. You can't consume anything. Like you can't read, you
Yes.
can't write. So of course, when you're meditating for 100 hours, you're getting ideas and you need
Yes.
to release them and let them go and trust that maybe they'll come back. But there can be, for creatives, some of us know that sometimes ideas come and they may not come back. So
Yes.
to-do items, they probably will come back, but more creative inspiration, ooh. So I am open to breaking a meditation for creative insight or
Yes.
impulse. Those don't happen as often as the to-do
Yes.
list items.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's that going with the flow of those things, giving yourself space to be creative. Creativity takes space. And we were just talking before we started recording about this new year as we jump into 2026
Mhm.
and how exciting it is, but it takes some time to feel settled in. It takes some time to come back into the pathway. And oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, I feel like we're like, today is January 2nd. Why have I not hit my goals? Or like,
Mhm.
what are my goals? What are my direction? And I like to think about the beginning of the year as a beginning, but there's no timeline as far as, am I you getting my plan together? I don't have to be so busy for it not to come to me. And I think taking those moments of stillness allow for creativity and allow for problem solving and allow for more clarity that we can't get in any other way.
Right. Yeah. And I think when it comes to stillness, is it chaos punctuated by stillness, or
Mm,
is there, how can we make it manageable in the moment?
yes.
So with logistics, I sometimes find myself in a flow state, backgrounds and events, and it's like, okay, if 20 Amazon packages just arrived at my door, which has happened, then it's like, okay, this is an invitation to, maybe I open up all of the boxes now. Maybe I put things in their
Yes.
place and then I go to the recycling. And having these processes can help us from totally drowning in overwhelm, because
Yes.
the next step and you're able to roll with it, versus looking at the pile and then maybe the next day another 10 packages come and then you have this huge pile that you just want to shove away. I believe in the opposite of procrastination. It's like, oh, if it can be done now, I think about my future self and they will be thankful
Yes.
if I can do this now. And I love block scheduling. And
Yes.
if I can do a higher volume of something at once, because I know that when we're in flow state, if we're interrupting, just like classic school schedules growing up, 55 minutes every hour for 8 hours, you're barely getting into it in that 55-minute
Yes.
mark. And then I remember in college, block scheduling, you would have a 3 or 4 hour class and you can
Yes.
really just dive in and get comfortable. And that's what I try to do. I have certain days on my calendar that are dedicated to coaching calls or dedicated
Yes.
to discovery calls. So it's
Yes.
like I'm really in that zone and it's not about code switching all the time.
Yes. And that's such a, like, I also, because we're both projectors and we'll get into your human design really soon. And friends that you don't know about human design, you can pull your chart from a link in the show notes and find out the gifts that you were born with too. Well, with projectors, it's that we can have that forward motion really quickly and really dive into things and get things done really efficiently. And it's really a beautiful thing to look at, as well as looking at our pockets of rest and our pockets of downtime. So I love to schedule my week with pockets where I don't have any clients, I don't have any podcast guests, because I need no time with people. And I
Mhm.
know you work with a lot of introverted people who have this introvert extrovert time, as you're helping them to develop their confidence in speaking and leadership settings. And that, like that blocking and knowing, hey, this is what I need. I need pockets of here I am and here I'm not. And it really does help this to develop ourselves, is to listen to what we really, really need.
Totally. Yeah. Being attuned to your intuition, I know for myself and my clients, sometimes there can be a tendency to get in your head and like, okay, here's the to-do list, because it's a balance, right? If you're always checking in with yourself, how do I feel about doing this? And if, let's say, you don't feel like working out, you don't feel like doing work on your business, and you don't do it, that's not going to actually be helpful. So,
Yes.
but then if you're really powering through and you really need to rest, that's why I find it's so powerful, kind of similarly to yourself, where you schedule time. This is my do nothing time, or my
Yes.
spa time, or,
Yes.
create something fun where someone else has the reins and you're just like, okay, my brain is off.
Yes, I love that. My brain is off. And to not feel guilty about that. Well, one of the things we always get into our guest challenges and things they've experienced that helped develop them and make them into who they are, because we all have unseen challenges and unseen struggles. I really know that as we share these struggles, that we feel less alone. We feel less like, oh, is it me? Am I the problem? Like we can understand that we each have struggles that we go through. And I was just reflecting this morning as I was on my walk that my last month has been trash because
Mm.
my MS has flared up and we're switching medications. And then the holidays, and I had a bunch of kids in town. And I was like, I feel like I did nothing but survive for this last month. And I was like, and then part of me was like, I feel so behind. But it's all part of the journey. And I wanted to you were telling me about how you've been really working on shedding labels, and really this has been a defining challenge for you. And I would love to hear about your experience with that.
Yes. So when it comes to labels, I can go into a couple of labels in particular that you could say that they've been shed or they've
Yes.
been reframed.
Mm.
Because let's start out with a concept. Anyone else study sociology in college? So my favorite
Yes.
concept is called the looking glass self. And the looking glass self says that the way that you view yourself is how you think other people see you. So it's not even rooted
Yes.
in truth. It's not what anyone even actually said. It's like, let's say if someone gives you a look, you make it mean something based on a
Mm.
self concept or a comment that a parent made 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago. And then it becomes how you are, because there would be too much cognitive dissonance if you acted any different than how you think other people think of you. This is why
Yes.
people move to new cities and they're like, let's try this again, because these people can envision that these people can think differently of them than maybe a previous city where the shit hit the fan, or, whatever, right? So that's an extreme example, but you don't need to even move. Speaking of someone that just moved, I know, but
Yeah,
you don't
you
even,
just yeah.
yeah, but you don't even need to move. You can even enter a new space in terms
Yes.
of a new social circle. And
Yes.
you can decide that, okay, how do I want to show up? Because we are multifaceted. And in a lot of my work, I talk about this distinction between creating yourself and being yourself. Because in the personal development world, when we decide that, okay, I want to create myself, it can be so empowering. But you know what we do in the process? We push down all the disowned aspects of self. So those are the labels. And I'll go into a couple of examples in my own life in a moment. But let's say that we're like, that really is unfortunate that those labels are true about me. But then personal development world says, but wait, it doesn't have to be true. And you say, oh, great. Okay. So what do I want to be instead? I can be anything, because like we can be anything, like a
Yes.
personality trait we want to have, we can develop it.
Yes.
We have an aptitude towards certain things. But then in my own journey, I realized that there was space to kind of go back and reclaim and
Mm.
re-own those disowned aspects that just wanted to be acknowledged and loved and not judged.
Yeah. And tell me, yeah, your example of you going through this too. What did you see for yourself?
Yeah. So one of the primary reframing labels. So growing up, there was a much different experience that I had socially within my home versus out in the world at school. So I'm talking like early childhood. So I wonder if anyone else can relate to being sort of the odd one out at home. and feeling like, okay, I'm a little different. I'm showing up differently. My thoughts and opinions are different. I'm vocalizing them. It's not going
Yes.
so well.
Yes.
That was kind of a theme growing up where one label is the black sheep, right?
Mm.
Once you read about that label, if that is you, at first you might be like, nah, because everyone says, no, you're part of the family, you fit in. But then you're like,
Yes.
but wait, like actually there's something different here.
Yes. So did you have a hard time fitting in your family? Did you feel that like black
Oh,
sheep?
totally. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I was, kind of like the outlier
Yes.
where everyone else was either in agreement or just being quiet about it if they didn't agree. So
Yes.
so sometimes it can be an illusion of this like, oh, there's this cohesive family unit and then there's me. It's like, well, maybe I'm the person that's speaking and other people just aren't
Yes.
speaking. So then on one end, okay, we have that label, that persona
Yes.
within the household, and then we have the persona at school of being this super quiet introvert to the
Oh.
point where just like didn't really engage with other people because it's like, ooh, is it safe to? Not really sure based on my experiences so far. And
Yes.
having a very limited number of friends, intentionally so, but also out of fear. Let's say that that's where it started. And now I'm going to walk you through the metamorphosis of these two labels.
Yes.
So when it comes to the label of the black sheep, what we can decide to turn that into. So this is transmuting the label and
Yes.
actually owning it and being like, yeah, I am a little different in this particular system. However, there are other places where it's not like I find belonging, but I can create this sense of belonging. And there are
Mm.
other people that also, they think a little differently. And if I go into different spaces, like maybe entrepreneurial spaces, maybe creative spaces, then I'll find more of those people. And it's about allowing that sense of connection and belonging to come from a different place and to put less pressure and emphasis on it coming from the place where you kind of really wish it would. But it's so, and then the reframe here is claiming the title of being sort of like the one. And this is a
Yes.
phrase I want to give credit where it's due. There's this coach in the space, Melanie Ann Lair, that talks about the
Mm.
one. And it's a total reframe of the black sheep archetype where it's like,
Yes.
okay, you're the person that's here to break the cycles. You're the person that's here to be a light in the world. You're the one that's here to stand up for what you believe in and to help
Yes.
other people. And not everyone's going to get it. But you were
Yes.
born into people not getting it, so you are uniquely prepared to be on your mission in this life.
Yeah. And how did you, so you had these things that you wanted to say, and that's part of your human design that we'll get into more, is you have the gift of speaking. And so, and I have that same gift too. And when I was growing up, I had a close knit group of friends and I could feel really confident and really at ease and have a lot of fun. But when it got to bigger groups, I was like, ah,
Right.
and it took me a few years in college to come into my sense of confidence. And but when I learned about my human design, I learned that I had this gift of speaking. And I was like, I have never felt like that. Like when the spotlight shines on me, I'm like, I get all like flustered and stammered and stuff like that. And so I had to really think like play with this gift. Like think, okay, what if I use this gift? If I really do have this gift, which my human design is saying I do, how could I play with it? How could I try and tap into this? Did you have those, like that stepping in metamorphosis as well of playing with these gifts and
Yes.
finding more of a voice?
A big part of how that came about was actually when we talk about the archetype of the introvert and the
Mm.
personality trait, how growing up, for many of us, if you were labeled that, it was usually talked about in a negative way,
Yes.
where it's like, oh, you should be louder. You're missing participation points at school
Yes.
because because
Yes.
school setting, it really prioritizes people that are vocal. And for me, it wasn't necessarily about speaking up in a certainly more often,
Mm-hmm.
but being introverted at its core, it doesn't mean you don't have social skills. It means that
Yes.
you process things internally. You may be more comfortable in solitude. You're more likely to be able to be creative and behind the scenes and get things done and really get energy from those creative pursuits in a way that not everyone can.
Yes.
So when I reclaimed the title of introvert, it was in my first book, Confident Introvert. And because some people think introverts can't be confident, and I wanted to really dispel that super quick. And the fact that developing social confidence, it's not like I became an extrovert. Some people will use that language. It's like, oh, that's awesome. You were a shy introvert, then you became this public speaking extrovert. It's like, not so fast. I still am. Everyone's on the spectrum of introvert, extrovert. Most people are ambiverts. I'm probably more of an ambivert, but slightly more introverted. So it became reclaiming being introverted and being a voice for that. And when I tread lightly when I first started in the work world because I wasn't sure, will these companies, will these institutions celebrate how I show up? And at that point, I'm like, maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's just about getting the paycheck. I was really orienting myself with what it meant to be a person in the world, in corporate America in particular. And then there came a time where there were certain gifts that I knew that I had, certain ideas that I really felt like, oh, I want to share this idea with this company. However, I have this certain title. Maybe that's not in my lane. So, I would still ask though, just see, hey, are you open? And sometimes there was openness, sometimes there was not. And then there came a point where it's like, okay, if I were to claim expertise in something, self-appoint, what would that be? And I got help from a coach at the time to identify this niche of networking for introverts. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't about like, I want to prove myself or I want to prove that people will listen or whatever. It was actually about what is a lesson that I've embodied. And it was going from feeling really disconnected to tapping into the truth of being connected with other people, being connected with yourself, being connected with the universe, wherever you are, and being able to put that into terms that were really less woo and very accessible to people. A lot of people that came to my workshops were software engineers and CPAs and people that have very technical minds. And to be able to break different concepts down and strategies down and mindset reframes down to help people understand that if you are more introverted, that is actually totally fine. And it can actually be something that you use to your advantage. It doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It doesn't mean that you're worse than anyone. It's just something that you can leverage in a different way.
Yeah, and I love that about reclaiming it because we lose our power so often just in our brain. It's not actually someone being like, you should do this or you should do that. It's so much up here. And reclaiming that for ourselves allows us to understand that we can move forward. And I've had a lot of reclaiming with MS telling me, like, you can't do this. You can't, do whatever goal is in front of me. And I'm like, but I've done it in the past. I get to do it again. And it's actually exciting. It's purposeful and it's driven and it's okay. I don't have to show up perfectly because it won't be perfect, but I can do a good job and it'll be okay. And I think that's a lot about what human design teaches us is how to get to the goal, how to get to this end game, but doing it in a way that reflects us. So all friends who are listening about human design, if you're like, wait, I don't even know what this is. Human design is like the anagram. It is like strength finders, but it takes it 100 deeper levels because it shows us the gifts that we were born with. It shows us how we operate best. And as we lean into that, we can stop pushing and really aligning. And so there's about 35 to 40 parts of your chart, Steph. And I chose a few that just really stood out to me. And one of the areas that I always love to start with is your human design type. And there are 5 human design types, and you are a projector. So you and I are the same human design type. And the mantra for projectors is I guide wisely, because you are a wise guide. You are an amazing wise guide, and you have this ability to see patterns with a zoomed out perspective and to guide others through it. You have this beautiful ability to feel what other people are feeling and to kind of read the room without having being told it in words. You're very good at innovating because a lot of times projectors with our ebbs and flows of energy can come like, wait, how can I do this easier? I don't have to do all these things. I can do it simple and move the needle forward very efficiently, but by doing only a few things, which is really a great system of innovation. So how did you've seen this gift of guiding people. How has that helped you in your career?
Understanding when to use it and when to not. Something that has
Mm.
been so instrumental has been asking for consent before giving feedback. So certainly if I
Oh,
have a coaching client, they have consented, they want my
yes.
feedback.
Yeah.
But out in the wild, what I didn't know as well when I was younger
Yes.
was I'd think, of course people want to know my idea. It's so great. Like, duh. Like, why wouldn't
Yes.
people want to improve? You'd be
Yes.
surprised.
For
Sometimes,
reals.
right? Some people are kind of like, oh no, I'm good. And wherever this is, and their definition of better is comfortable, maybe.
Yes.
So there's also a kindness in meeting people where they're at. So, in a nutshell, being able to ask in any
Mhm.
sort of conversation where you have an insight or a tip to ask, would you like my perspective on this? Would you like another opinion on
Oh,
this? And to get an enthusiastic yes. And if someone says
yes.
no, then you save your breath. They don't want it. It's a gift, but they don't want the gift. Don't give it. Or even if they kind of say it in a wishy-washy way, then you get to use your own discretion that, oh, okay, you can either say it if you want to take it super literally and just give it anyway, or if you're not feeling like it, you don't need to give your advice or your opinion to people that don't really find value in it.
Yes, I love that. I love asking for that. Like, hey, would you like my perspective on this? Would you like my thoughts? Would you like what I feel about this? Because it does open up a conversation. And really, that's such a great projector statement because it's leaning into this other part of your human design chart, which is your strategy. And your strategy is how you make things happen. And the strategy is being invited. Now, oftentimes in the projector world, we're like, well, does getting an invitation mean I just sit there and wait for people to talk to me, or I
Yeah.
wait for the opportunities, because we're taught in business we should go knock on doors, and if you're not asking for what you want, you're not going to get it. That's not what it means at all. This invitation is really about curating conversations, curating collaborations, curating leadership and roles and networking and making friends, And that is really how you make things happen, is that curating those intentional relationships that with the people that you vibe with. Now, I have tried to push curation and it never works out. It always backfires. And the great thing about us as projectors is we can feel this vibe, we can feel this energetic exchange that's allowing us to take that relationship to the next level in and how we go for that. So I know you, as you have curated those invitations, have you ever forced the chase down the exchange, and has it not worked out?
Yeah. In
Yes.
a word. Yeah, I mean, I can even think from a speaker perspective,
Yes.
there have been a number of times where I've been invited to speak and the organization or the company was not even on my radar. It was not something that I would have sought out. And then I can think in particular about this professional organization that I would go to their events in San
Mm.
Francisco, and I had such, and I still have, a great
Yes.
impression of them. And I applied to speak multiple times. And it was just very clear that it's like, oh no, like this is not a door that's going to be open, at least with the leadership that was there at the time. Maybe I could always try again. But sometimes for me, it's having a North Star, but not getting too tied to, oh, it needs to be this one because of what I've made this mean. Where when I look at
Yes.
my speaking repertoire, I have certainly spoken at places that are as reputable, if not more reputable, than this place that has been on my radar that I really want.
Yes.
And it's really been about letting it go and being at peace with it's this or something better.
Yes, it's this or something better. And that's a magical phrase that can allow us to not take things personally, you know? And instead of reflecting on that opportunity and being like, it didn't work out, oh, it must mean something that I'm wrong or broken or whatever. It means that another door will be open that's really meant for us. And so how do you relationships intentionally? Because I think there's so many platforms that we can be on, right? And there's
Mhm.
so many in-person networking things. And as I've been reflecting on this year and what I want my networking to look like, I'm evaluating what did I do last year, what has worked and what has not. And being a projector, and we have those introverted, extroverted moments. Before COVID, when I was just doing straight marketing, I was networking a lot in person. I was BNI president. I was doing all these things, and it was so draining to me. I was done. And so, I was so kind of grateful for COVID. I was like, oh, good. I just need to
Mhm.
be by myself for a long time. Okay, this is really working out for me. But how do you create relationships intentionally without going too much?
I can speak to pre-COVID. I also was
Yes.
hosting events multiple times a week. So I
Oh,
began to actually host more than I attended.
wow.
I just had all these ideas, but I was still attending. So it ended up being most days of the week I was at something. And it actually didn't burn me out because I
Yes.
managed my energy effectively and because I really found myself in flow and in love of the process. And it was a combination of, I was doing community stuff for work, doing community stuff for fun. And I was in such flow and synergy. And then during that Vipassana retreat that I mentioned at the end of 2019, going into 2020, that's when, 10 days of not interacting with anyone and just meditating and then taking it easy going into the new year and then realizing that pace that I had the past several years isn't going to be what it was. I mean,
Yes.
you could try to do that on Zoom, but I feel like that's a lot more draining to be doing
Yes.
that high volume of events sitting in your living room the whole time.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I've been very intentional even this year going into 2026 at the time of this recording, thinking about, okay, how often do I want to host? How often do I want to
Yes.
attend? And for me, it's helpful to have a North Star number. So for me,
Yes.
I'm thinking, okay, if I host something once a month, maybe twice,
Mm,
but once a month is enough.
yes.
Then attending a sort of event, networking meetup about once a week, maybe twice a week if there's something really compelling.
Yes.
And I'm actually reallocating my social time to be more skewed towards health wellness. So for example,
Oh,
running groups. I'm not counting that as, well, I went to a running group once this week. That's my event. No, it doesn't count.
yeah.
But going to running groups that are not too far for me, so it's not too draining with the commute,
Yeah.
and then doing something healthy and active.
Yeah, I love that. Like, really looking at those lines where it's crossing personal and professional and just having fun. I think that's
Mhm.
the part of it is having fun. And I love also that phrase of a North Star, like having guidance when we come up against opportunities. Because our internal female founder will be like, let's go, let's do it all, but our North Star can be, these are the benchmarks that I want to do personally and professionally, and I need to have those meet those standards in order to go forward. So, one last part in your chart that I wanted to hit is when we're looking at your human design body graph part, we have all these centers, and when a center is colored in green from my site, they're colored in green, they're defined centers, and they're always go. So you always have these gifts all the time. So you have a defined heart center, which is your willpower center. So the mantra for this is I can move mountains. You have this center of willpower, desire, commitment. You're going to get it done. If you see this goal over here, you're going to be like, either we're going to move up the mountain, we're going to blow up the mountain, we're going to crush it, and get to the other side. And that is a beautiful gift because it's always on, it's always driving you. It gives you strength to go through hard times personally or professionally. Now, balancing you as a projector with your ebbs and flows of energy, this can cause some more burnout. Have you seen this fluctuation?
Have structured my life and my career to get 9 hours of sleep a night.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
And I typically don't take calls before 11 a.m. I like to have my time in the morning to work out, to have breakfast. I am increasingly taking more evenings to myself for creative projects and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Whereas pre-COVID, it was filled with events. Maybe it's now, having a friend over for dinner and it gets to be a little bit more low key
Uh,
where I still really value going into new spaces and meeting new people. However, being more intentional about the spaces that I'm going to. So, for example, they're valuing health and all of this. And I find that when I'm proactively managing my energy, it's not something that I need to play catch up with later because it's a way of life.
Yeah, you're like noticing your body saying with those ebbs and flows, and you've kind of like calendared it in. So there's no question about not having space enough to recharge and to
Yeah.
re
Well, and I love a bath. So
oh,
one of my friends who's also a projector, her name's Courtney K. She calls these flash baths.
oh, nice.
And she's like, during the day, she's like, yeah, I'll just take like a 15-minute bath. I'm like, wow, that's really fun. That's cool. So like,
Yes.
I'm more likely to luxuriate in my baths personally, but certain non-negotiables in self-care would be that, yeah, in any home I live in, there needs to be a bathtub because I'm
Yes.
going to be soaking multiple times a week. It's just, it's normal for me. It's not a nice to have. And also getting regular
Yes.
massages and making sure that I'm eating fresh fruits and vegetables, having fresh flowers around and things like that.
Yeah, it's those like real self-investments that create returns for ourselves, that create that physical energy we need to have to move forward, to have creativity and clarity in all those areas. So when we talk a lot in the ROI of business about marketing, sales, performance, all these as measurable markers of success. But in the ROI of peace, it's different. It's about returns that we can't necessarily see, but it's those schedules and commitments to ourselves of investing in ourselves, of calm and clarity and confidence that fuel everything else. So when you think about your own ROI of peace right now, where do you feel called to invest in more peace in your life or business?
I feel called to invest more peace in, hmm, gosh, I know it's so funny. I don't have a go-to answer because I feel like the peace when it comes to being fully unpacked and having everything that I need in a new home environment, that's something that is in progress, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and with just moving and to a new place and feeling settled, feeling that call to feel like I'm here, I'm settled, and getting into that area of your new life, you know? And I think too, what we were talking about is like being intentional with making new connections in your new city, you know? Like that's bringing in peace into your life, and that's purposeful and intentional.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, for example, even getting into certain routines. I've been traveling for the past 6 months, and when it comes to fitness is a huge value of mine. It really keeps
Yes.
me grounded and level-headed
Yeah.
to run regularly, to do high-intensity interval training. However, it can be a little more challenging when you're traveling. And maybe if I love to do carry-on only when I go to places, and sometimes there isn't space for running shoes and things like that when you're traveling so light. You still go on long walks, but it's not exactly the same. So I'm super excited to get my at-home gym equipment and just, to make that a part of the process.
Yes, I totally agree. I went to the gym last night and did a leg workout. It was so fabulous. And my last month has not been so fabulous in the gym department. And it was just so nice to get back. And it was so cool because I felt the energy of the group
Mm,
in the gym, which I just absolutely love because everybody's like, we're doing it.
yeah.
And it just is such a wonderful beacon in my life is to go to the gym. So Stephanie, this has been an awesome conversation. I know that my friends all listening want to get into your world. How do they get connected with you?
Yes. So I'd love to offer a couple of options here. So one of them is I have a complimentary visibility sprint challenge with 30 days worth of prompts to help you really get into that stream of consciousness, speaking off the cuff on video so that you can post it online. So there are tips and tricks there as well as a community called Unmute Yourself. So for access to that, you can go to Stephanie Thoma, THOMA.com/resources. And then for anyone listening today who is keen on creating a signature talk that you get to tour around, get paid for, or draft and publish your first book, then those are things that I can help you with. You should have a clarity call, and you can do that at tidycal.com/Stephanie Thoma/clarity.
Oh my goodness, Steph, that sounds so amazing. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been awesome. And friends, thank you so much for listening and being here with us today. It means the world to me. A beautiful episode. Share it with a friend, Make sure that they hear these messages as well and that we can support each other as we rise in our ROI of peace. Because peace is really the thing that moves the needle forward. It's really what pays off. So keep investing, and we'll see you in the next episode.